Joseph Stalin is known today as the dictator of the Soviet Union, who within his lands ordered the executions of thousands. Stalin ordered a number of purges, which led to hundreds of thousands of people being murdered and killed, and many being sent to the gulags, the horrific system of labour camps set up across the Union. One man who rose to prominence within Stalin's regime was Genrikh Yagoda, who was appointed as the director of the NKVD, the Secret Security and Intelligence Service. Yagoda was incredibly powerful, and he oversaw a huge number of executions and the beginning of the events of the Great Purge. However, like so many, he himself fell from grace. So join us today as we look at the brutal execution of Genrikh Yagoda, Stalin's chief of police. Remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Genrikh Yagoda was born into a Jewish family in November 1891. His father was a jeweller, and from a young age he began to involve himself in revolutionary actions. He claimed that as young as 14 he was working in underground printing presses, and also as a member of a fighting squad. Yagoda joined the Bolsheviks in Nizhny Novgorod around the age of 16 and was quickly arrested and exiled, but in 1913 he had moved to St. Petersburg and was working inside of the steel works. As the First World War broke out and the Russians became involved, Yagoda joined the cause, fighting for his country, and enrolled in the army, but was later wounded while seeing action. His early career as a revolutionary who sought to go against the government may have been embellished to impress, but following the October Revolution of 1917, he rose to prominence inside of the Cheka. The Cheka was a Soviet secret police that came before the NKVD, and Yagoda was seen as a promising member of the force. He became the second deputy to Felix Dzerzhinsky, the head of the Cheka, and later became the deputy chief of the State Political Directorate, the OGPU. In these roles, he would have been seen as competent, and he began to rub shoulders with the leaders of the Soviet Union. He was described as a fair, slightly tanned, trim-looking youngish officer who was difficult to link to terror due to his affable and modest personality. He was seen as a pleasant young man who many could not believe was linked to the brutality and execution and also the torture carried out by the Cheka. It was said, though, that as time went on, he did change in his appearance and manner as he gained more power. Yagoda had known Stalin for a long while, since 1918, where they fought together during the Civil War, but it's believed that he did oppose Stalin on a number of different ideas and policies, which may have driven a wedge between the two at times. He continued in his duties and was involved in executions of high-ranking and well-known Soviet figures. As the deputy head of the OGPU, Yagoda was involved in organising construction works of the White Sea-Baltic Canal using forced labour, and it was noted how the use of slave labour to complete this job led to a huge loss of life, even if it was completed very quickly. He also began work on the Moscow-Volga Canal, which was later finished off by Nikolai Yezhov. Yagoda, in his role, also expanded the use of prison labour, and was even part of a group that founded a secret poison laboratory that was practically gifted to Stalin to use against any of his enemies. This meant that Stalin, through his factory, had the means of eradicating any of his dissenters using poison, in crafty and underhand means. It's believed that upon the orders of Stalin, that Yagoda drugged the former NKVD boss, Menzinsky. 2 months following Menzinsky's suspicious death, Stalin appointed Yagoda as the People's Commissar for Internal Affairs, which meant he was now acting as the chief of the NKVD, the secret police. He was the one who was involved in ordering high-profile investigations, executions, and overseeing the work, which was very often bloody. The NKVD's legacy is most remembered for their torture and killing, including when they carried out the Great Purge. The Great Purge was a campaign launched by Stalin against his own people, where he ordered that any dissent or suspicion of dissent would be put down brutally. The NKVD carried this out, and it's estimated that between 700,000 and 1.2 million people were executed in the massacres and ethnic cleansing of the Purge. It was under Yagoda's leadership that the NKVD began the Great Purge, but it would reach its peak later under the leadership of Yezhov. All aspects of Soviet society were targeted, including the Red Army, and this military force would even be negatively affected by it and weakened when the Second World War broke out. The gulags were expanded greatly under Yagoda's command, and thousands of people found themselves transported to the brutal prison camps, often hundreds of miles from their homes. But Stalin was getting frustrated with his chief of the NKVD. Those who came into this position often left the role in brutal fashion and in bloodshed. Yagoda had been criticised, and his public opinion with regards to show trials had led to the public looking unfavourably on him and the NKVD, and this report even generated sympathy for those who were executed, criticising Stalin. Stalin was unhappy with Yagoda for a number of reasons. He saw the assassination of Sergei Kirov as mishandled, and he began to not trust him at all. Yagoda did not report the existence of the bloc of oppositions to an alliance that existed between oppositionists within the Soviet Union and Leon Trotsky. Stalin later wrote, "Yagoda has obviously proved unequal to the task of exposing the Trotskyite bloc." The following day after this letter was sent, on the 26th of September 1936, Yagoda was relieved of his command of the NKVD and was replaced by Yezhov. There was some belief that the opposition to Stalin could have been working with Yagoda, and it was said he was removed from the NKVD and we lost our strong link in our opposition intelligence service. Genrikh Yagoda had lost everything, and in March 1937 was arrested after Stalin ordered his capture. Yezhov accused Yagoda of smuggling diamonds and of corruption and working as a German spy and agent since he joined the communists decades before. It was even claimed that Yagoda tried to assassinate him by leaving bits of mercury around Yezhov's office, but it's likely that Yezhov was justifying the trial and subsequent execution that would take place. He was also accused of poisoning Maxim Gorky and his son, and also it was found in his apartments and Dhaka that there was a number of illicit items, explicit items, and also works written by Trotsky found there. At trial he was found guilty of treason and also conspiracy against Stalin and the Soviet government. It was clear what the verdict would be, and the public criticism of Yagoda only meant one thing: that he would be sentenced to death. He claimed he was not a spy, and he did expect to receive clemency from Stalin. Some would say he was confident in his mannerisms at trial, as he knew Stalin would spare him, but this never came. Shortly after the trial was finished, the death sentence against Genrikh Yagoda was carried out. It's believed that he was dragged out of the courtroom, and within minutes had been taken to an execution chamber, where he was shot dead a short while after the fact he'd been declared guilty. The Soviets did not tend to wait when it came to killing high-profile political targets and those deemed enemies. This would be the same course of action taken against Yagoda's successors, Yezhov and then Lavrenti Beria. The chief of the NKVD position usually led to one thing: the shooting of that person in the position of power. Yagoda would have been shot by a sole executioner or by a firing squad shortly after the sentence of death would have been repeated. It has been said that before his execution, to add insult to injury, Yezhov ordered that Yagoda should be stripped naked and also beaten. This was done to shame him just before his execution and to humiliate him. It's not known what happened to his remains after the execution, and it's considered that high-profile chief executioner for the NKVD, Vasily Blokhin, may have been the one to take Yagoda's life. Along with his shooting, it's believed that 3,000 supporters of Yagoda inside of the NKVD were also shot and killed. 50 years after the trial of Yagoda and the others, all of the other 20 defendants were pardoned and cleared of charges except for Yagoda. He is seen in history as a man who would carry out the wishes of Stalin by starting the Great Purge, but ultimately he would be one of those close to the leadership of the Soviet Union who would also suffer. Stalin believed Yagoda had failed, and he saw Yezhov as a man who would carry out the dirty and brutal work of the NKVD with utmost efficiency and without any questions asked. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.